their way, Genesis 12, 1 through 4. And then we'll look at a familiar passage in John's Gospel, Nicodemus. The call of Abram, who's not yet been named Abraham. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will bless you. And I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." And then from John's Gospel, chapter 3, verses 1 through 12, Nicodemus visits Jesus. And you may stand if you are able to do that. Now, there was a Pharisee named Nicodemus, a leader of the Jews. He came to Jesus by night and said to him, "Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one can do these signs that you do apart from the presence of God." Then Jesus answered him, "Very truly I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God without being born from above." Nicodemus said to him, "How can anyone be born after having grown old? How can they enter a second time into the mother's womb and be born?" Jesus answered, "Very truly I tell you, no one can enter the kingdom of God without being born of water and the Spirit. What is born of the flesh is flesh, and what is born of the Spirit is spirit. Do not be astonished that I said to you, then you must be born from above. The wind blows where it chooses, and you hear the sound of it, but you don't know from where it comes or where it's going. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit." And Nicodemus said to him, "How can these things be?" Jesus answered him, "Are you a teacher of Israel, and yet you do not understand these things? Very truly I tell you, we speak out what we know and testify to what we have seen, yet you do not receive our testimony. If I had told you about earthly things and you do not believe, how then will you believe if I tell you about heavenly things? No one has ascended into heaven except the one who descended from heaven, the Son of Man. Just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that whoever believes in him may have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but have eternal life. Indeed, God did not send his Son into the world to condemn it, but that the world might be saved through him." The Word of God, the people of God. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. If any pastor is worth his or her salt, they will tell you that when they preach or when they develop their sermon series, we usually have our names written all over them. One of the joys of preaching, and I've heard Russ say it in teaching, and many of you who've taught, is you learn just as much, if not more, than those that you deliver the material to. I would say, Jennifer, that's true. You can't get enough English. You learn more about the English language the more you teach it, the more interesting it becomes. This series is certainly no different for me. This series has my name all over it. I love Lent. Giving up things, I struggle with that just as much as the rest of you. Now, last week, I really got nailed. Because if you remember, we talked about giving up control. And you know that quiz that I gave you, the controlling quiz, to see where you fell on that scale? And remember I told you, Gary, said, you don't even need to take it, baby. I can tell you exactly where you are. Well, I went home just for grins and took it. And I'm happy to report I was not at the very top of the list that says, yeah, you got some definite control issues. Some of you are saying, yeah, I was there. I was one rung below that. I was so proud of it. And that category was, you probably have some control issues. And I very happily reported that to Gary, who said, probably. He scored right where I thought he would, in that live and let live category, which I think explains why that his part of the couch looks the way it always looks, and that his closet just kind of takes on a life of its own, and he cares not what iota. Not one iota. It's interesting, though, about this whole thing, because I know that controlling or bossing is my Achilles heel. I heard my mother secretly tell you that. She did. I heard her. She didn't know I overheard. Watch out, Gary. She said, you're a brave young man. Yeah. But since I know that's my Achilles heel, I have purposely been trying to work this week. Because if there are going to be problems between Gary and me that I initiate or that I cause, it's going to be because I'm trying to exert control over him or his space or whatever. And I have worked extra hard this week. I hope you've noticed. All right. That didn't go over very well. Okay, so some of you maybe you didn't inherit that control DNA. Maybe you came from a more laid-back family, or you fudged on the test, one or the other. So maybe last week didn't catch you, but this week may catch you and me. The whole topic that we're talking about is giving up expectations. Now, we all have expectations to one degree or another. We have high expectations and sometimes low expectations. We have fair expectations, unfair expectations, unclear expectations, unmet expectations, vacillating expectations. Sometimes they change depending on who's in the room or what child's in the room, because some deserve different kinds of treatment to get what you want, right? But any way you slice it, it's important for us to understand that expectations, they don't function in reality. They function in the future. That's something that you and I project onto the future. We project a list of expectations or understandings of the way we think the world works, and it's completely within our control, even though sometimes we act like it's not. I expect one day that my 24-year-old daughter will leave the parsonage, that art degree is going to get her a job where she'll find another kind of job that will provide livelihood for her, that she can live on her own, or she'll find some roommates that she can decide she can live with. That's what I expect is going to happen. I don't know if that's going to happen. That is my expectation. Doing some research on this whole area of expectation, but we know this without doing a lot of reading. We know that our expectations are based on probable outcomes, things that we assume are likely to happen because they've happened in history, things that we project or simply we believe on the basis of hope that we have in our lives. Sometimes we base our expectations based on what people say. Well, because thus and such said it's true, then I expect it's true. I know it's true because thus and such said it. Sometimes we base our expectations on things that we think we heard people say. We're not sure, but we think we heard people say. Sometimes we create our own expectations in order to make sense of our world. It's interesting, in the South, in particular in the Bible Belt, right here in Bristol, a lot of our churches act like, well, most of the people in Bristol must be Christians or God-fearing Christians, so therefore we don't need to have a strong evangelism program because they know God. Is that why we don't push as much as we should and go out as much as we should? And it's not just our church that struggles with that. Other churches struggle with that. We make assumptions and have expectations about the area in which we live. Think about the expectations that the Ku Klux Klan made all those years ago, that black folk are just not equal to white folk. And therefore they don't deserve the same social and economic justice that we white folk have. And those expectations set up a whole new system that continues today to promulgate hate. There was, in my life, an expectation, or in the lives of those that I've known, that if your parents were athletes and good athletes at that, then the children would naturally be athletes. And what do you mean you have a choice whether to be an athlete or not? If mama and daddy were, they have that expectation of you. Have you seen that projected on a child who wants nothing to do with sports? Preachers fall into that category a lot too. Well, granddaddy was a preacher and great-granddaddy before him and daddy, and therefore you need to be a preacher. Now, you should have seen my Baptist granddaddy when I said, I feel called. That was a different twist for him. Best blessing I ever had from that man before he died. I don't know how, honey, but somehow I know God's hand calls upon you. That's the most blessing I want. It was from my granddaddy. Expectations. And in these two readings that we've done, there were some expectations that were placed on both Abram and placed on Nicodemus. Abram, who had lived in his hometown all of his life, with his family and friends. Scripture said he lived in his father's house, and he lived in Haran. You know what Haran means? Crossroads. He lived on the crossroads. And in the middle of the night, God called him out from everything he'd ever known and loved, shook up his expectations a bit and said, look, I've got a task for you. I'm going to make you the heir of all the Jewish folks. So much sand on the seashore, you can't even count the sand in the inhabitants or the offspring that I will give you if you will only go. Now, did you hear how old Abram was when he said it? Do we have any 75-year-olds in here that would admit it? Or thereabout? Okay. Dale, you get called in the middle of the night. Pack up everything you got. Load up Sue and the kids and take off. I've got something in store for you. I can only imagine if he told that story to friends, they thought, gee, he needs lots of help. We need to call up the doctor. We need to call somebody who can talk some sense into this crazy man who needs to be settling down. It's time at that age to settle down. We Methodist ministers know a little bit about being called out. We're a part of a system that says, no, you can't join that church. You have to be a part of the conference, so you'll be reminded you'll go where you're sent. And we get called out, and we're trusting that the cabinet is expecting to rely on God to tell them where to call us out. Sometimes that call out is a better fit than others. We're always grateful when it is, and if it's not, then God helps us find a way as churches and pastors if we just work at it hard enough. Sometimes we feel called out to something new and fresh and exciting that we would have never expected, but God lays it on our heart. We just can't let it go. We've got to follow that lead. I suppose that this is not just something that happens to pastors. I'm presuming that you in your own life and your own relationship with God have felt at times in the quiet of the night when you got focused enough, you heard a voice calling you to something new and different that turned upside down your expectations of what life was and where you were going to be and who you were going to be in relationship with. I want you to take a minute and think about those. Alan shared about not expecting that he would ever be in private practice as an OBGYN. Are you kidding? Sandy would never see him, and she told him so. You know Sandy, she told him so. And lo and behold, Alan ends up in private practice, said he had more time in church, more time with his family than he could have ever imagined or expected. Called out by a voice, so to speak, that led him in a different direction than he'd expected. We've all had those, and we can tell about them, and we should tell about them. That's part of our testimony. Nicodemus, too, over in John's Gospel. A familiar story. Being called out to shake up his expectations about Messiah, for whom his folks were still waiting. What do you mean Messiah's in front of me? This can't be, but yet he felt compelled. Something about Jesus drew him out, and he had to get out of that religious setting in which he was, that gated community of the Jewish Sanhedrin that he lived in. But he would sneak out by night, and he would engage Jesus with all kinds of questions. And I've got news for you. The same questions he asked last year and the year before, he's still asking those same questions. How is it possible to enter a mother's womb for the second time and be born again? And Jesus is giving him the same answer. Are you a leader of Israel and you still don't understand this? Don't you understand how the wind moves and blows and that the body that you could touch, but the spirit that's forming within that person, that's the thing that's moving and shaking and changing? Why don't you understand that, oh religious sage that you are? Thank God that God has patience with the likes of Nicodemus and us when we ask the same inane questions and do the same inane stuff over and over again. I suppose that Nicodemus didn't understand that God was calling him out to something different. He had a different set of expectations for this man of the Sanhedrin. Nicodemus appears 2 more times in John's Gospel. In John chapter 7, Jesus is brought before the Sanhedrin, and you see Nicodemus speaking on Jesus' behalf, rather lukewarm, I might add, if you read it carefully, but speaking out on Jesus' behalf, getting a little closer to coming out of the dark. And then we see him appear again in John chapter 19. By this time, Jesus has been cut down from the cross, and Nicodemus appears at the tomb with Joseph of Arimathea, who owned the tomb. And he brings something with him. Do you remember your scripture to remember what he brings with him? A mixture of aloe and myrrh. Scripture says some 100 pounds of it. Now, we've got to wonder, was this Nicodemus' confession of faith that he finally stepped out in the light and claimed Jesus as Lord and Savior, or was he just trying to pack that Jesus down with enough spices to make sure he didn't escape that tomb? I like to think it was the former than the latter. Which brings me to my next point. What would have happened if Abram had said, when God called him out, "No, I like it here at the crossroads. I think I'm just going to stay a while. Why don't you just get yourself another heir? I'm good. Find somebody else, God." And what if Nicodemus had not followed that yearning in his heart for something more? And what if he had not taken those jaunts out during the night to ask God, or to ask Christ, what is it about you? What is it about what you're teaching that won't let me sleep at night, that makes me slip out of the safety of my community to try to understand, what is it? How would Jesus have responded if they had both cut off all relationship with him, if they had not acted the way he expected them to do and kept an engagement with him? Let me offer a couple of things for us to think about as we think about this whole business of expectations. A little bit more effective if we could see it up on the screen, but I'll try to read it and see if you can hear it and envision it. What screws most of us up in life is the picture that we have in our head of the way things and people are supposed to be. See, we got this image in our mind of what people are supposed to do and how they're supposed to act and the world's supposed to work, and when it doesn't, it messes with our mind. Shakespeare said, "Expectation is the root of all heartache." But then listen to this. "High expectations are the key to everything," says Sam Walton, founder of Walmart. Didn't do him too bad to have high expectations. Listen to this from Alcoholics Anonymous. "Expectations are premeditated resentments." Expect a lot of somebody. Set them up for an fall. Go ahead. Set them up for a fall and see how far your relationship goes and how true and authentic it is. Premeditated resentments when we expect of people. Sometimes we expect more from people because we would be willing to do that much for them. Oh, if everyone were like us, wouldn't the world be great? C.S. Lewis, "Don't let your happiness depend on something you may lose." Friends, happiness is not outside of us, it is within us. What's outside of us will pass. This is one model that I love to use in premarital counseling, this visual. Attachment equal expectations equal disappointments. No one person, no one friend can be your everything. Don't put that much on one person. That's crazy. They're going to fail every time. That's why we should have a variety of friends, a variety of acquaintances that we build relationships with. If you get too attached to people, you're going to start expecting things from them and they will disappoint you. There are two ways to be happy. Improve your reality or lower your expectations. Or is this opposite true? Don't lower your expectations. Change them. Change them. The discontent and the frustration that you feel is entirely your own creation. Let me read that again. The discontent and the frustration that you feel is entirely your own creation. Nobody can make us upset. Nobody can make us mad unless we give them power for them to do so. If we're so attached to somebody that we have to manage and control them, and they can upset us by every whim and every fancy that they do that's outside of our expectation, then we're going to stay disappointed. It's our own discontent we create when we project all kinds of stuff on people that they were never meant to fulfill for our reality. When you learn to accept instead of expect, you'll have fewer disappointments. When you learn to accept rather than expect. That's not to say that we encourage people to stay in their bad behavior. I'm not saying you give up and just lower your expectations for people who don't want to straighten up and fly right. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying find a new way to deal with them. Love them into a change. Love them into a relationship with Christ instead of beating them there. That's never going to work. Change up the way that you bring the message, but don't expect so much. Accept them and help them gently find a new way to be. Peace begins when expectation ends. Peace begins when expectation ends. And this beautiful piece, if I can find it, I'm not saying it, about friendships. When we begin to let people just be who they are, life is so much richer and fuller. Let them be who they are and not some version of what we want them to be, and trust God to do the rest. Expect more from yourself and less from others. Because the more you expect from yourself, you'll focus on you and what you could do better that might improve any relationship that you're in that's not going so good, instead of trying to project what you expect them to be. Expect far more from yourself and less from others. When it all comes down to it, we have a choice what we choose to expect and not. And now as I close, I want you to hear these powerful words from Scripture that talk about what we can expect from God. One of my favorite verses in Scripture, and it was our theme for annual conference one year, beautiful, from Ephesians 3, verses 20 and 21. Now to Him, by the power at work within us, who is able to accomplish exceedingly abundantly, far more than all we can ask or imagine or expect. To Him be the glory in the church, in Christ Jesus, in all generations, forever and ever. Of God, He can supply far more than we can ever think or ask or imagine or expect. If you're going to expect great things of Him, and expect great things of Him at work by His Holy Spirit within you. Thanks be.